Hampstead Garden suburb. Today I want to talk to you about virtual Minyan. A member asked me recently, ordinarily he would attend Minyan specifically to support those who are saying Kaddish. But if Kaddish could not be recited in a virtual service, he felt that there was no need to attend anymore. So I ask you today, does a virtual service have any purpose? This week is Parsha Behar, Bechukotai. And we begin the Parsha with the description of the Shemitah, the sabbatical year. 6 years we work our fields, and in the 7th year, the field is fallow. We're not allowed to work it. Now, sages tell us that it's a test of faith because we're not working, and yet we hope that God's blessing will come. And we have faith that God's blessing will come. Because the same way that God provided the land to our people, he can provide the land even if we're not working. But what is somewhat contradictory is the verse says that in the 6th year, I will give you, says God, threefold, enough to last you for 3 years. So if in the 6th year I have 3 times as much as I would ordinarily have, where's the test of faith? Here I am looking at my granary, completely overflowing. There's no test. Of course, I don't need to work in the 7th year. My faith isn't tested. God has already provided for me. Where is the test of faith? This week, the government announced that due to coronavirus, there will be a £300 billion deficit. And we're all asking, how are we going to be able to afford to pay for that deficit? It's going to take years, decades, generations. The answer, my friends, is we already have the money. What do I mean? Well, let's say we had the same problem a century or two ago. There was a terrible plague, and we were told that everyone must stay home. You can't go to work. What would they have done? Well, they would have gone to work because they didn't have a choice. They would have gone to work and more people would have died. They couldn't afford to stay home. But in our case, God has prepared us with the wherewithal to be able to stay home. He sent the plague, but before he sent the plague, he gave us the ability to be able to stay home and protect ourselves from the plague. You see, what's happened with that £300 billion deficit is that we have the money, it's just in one pocket and it's being moved into another pocket, and then eventually it'll move back. It's going from bondholders to taxpayers and eventually right back around. But the money is there, the blessing is there. What's happened is that already before the land is fallow, we already have that blessing. See, oftentimes in life, we don't recognize that we have the blessing. We have blessings of affluence and abundance, blessings unimagined by our grandparents. And when they're removed from us, the challenge is, how do we respond? Do we say, oh, I don't know how I'm going to survive while the field lies fallow? Or will we recognize that God has already given us in that proverbial 6th year an abundance of blessing to get through the sabbatical period? And it's not just financially that he's prepared us for this year. A century ago, could we all work from home? Of course not. It would be impossible. Nowadays, due to technology, many of us can work from home. God has given us the blessing before the sabbatical year, in the abundance of blessing in preparation. Friends, we all need to stay home for as long as possible. If you can work from home, then you should be working from home. But not everyone can. And for some, the situation is dire. And the heavenly advance won't last forever. That's why the government wants us to get back to work as soon as possible, which makes sense. Meanwhile, there's a little discrepancy. The chief rabbi has said that it's going to be a long time before the shuls reopen. How are we to explain that almost contradiction. Go back to work, but you can't go back to shul. So let me explain to you the difference between getting back to work and going back to shul. Some people cannot work from home, but we can all daven from home. And let's talk about our blessings once again. A century ago, could we have davened from home? Well, technically, yes, but we wouldn't have had a minyan. It would have been impossible to daven with a minyan from your home. Can we daven at home right now with a minyan? In other words, does our virtual service count as a minyan? I don't know the answer to that. The question doesn't appear in the classic texts. But here's what I do know. 10 physically present men constitutes a minyan. 9, not a minyan. If I have 9 virtual men, not a minyan. How about 10 virtual men that can see one another, and it's impossible for them, under any circumstances, to gather together physically? Would that be counted as a minyan? Answer is, I don't know. But here's what I'm going to do if I don't know. If I don't know, I'm going to err on the side of caution and make sure that I'm doing everything in my ability to cover my halachic bases. What do I mean? Well, there are really 3 different kinds of prayers. One kind of prayer you can recite on your own as an individual, whether you're reciting it in shul or at home, same spiritual outcome. There's another type of prayer that can only be recited with a minyan. You cannot recite it as an individual. And then there are those prayers in the middle where one can recite it individually, but when one recites it together with a minyan, like for example, the silent Amidah, the spiritual outcome, the spiritual impact of that prayer is far greater than had you davened alone. So here now that we are only able to daven virtually, have a minyan virtually, is it going to be better for me to daven alone, or in that virtual minyan, there is no one on the planet that can answer that question? And so the rational person says, well, I am better daven with that virtual minyan because it might work. It might have the same spiritual impact. Now, those parts of the service that one can only read, recite, pray with a minyan, our hands are tied. And so what are we to do? And more than anything, right now, my heart bleeds for those who don't have the opportunity to recite Kaddish for their loved ones. But here's what I want you to know. If the Almighty has withheld those prayers from us, then it's His responsibility to take care of them. Every morning, afternoon, and evening through this crisis, God has gathered together 9 angels and brought them into His holy minyan. With tears in His eyes, He recites thousands of Kaddishes every day for your dearly departed mother, father, son, daughter, husband, wife, brother, sister. God is reciting Kaddish for them. He has not missed a single Kaddish. But we need to demonstrate that we're making our effort. We're social distancing and avoiding multi-person gatherings. And we're making every effort to daven with our virtual minyan per the current guidelines. We'll do what we can, and we trust, we have faith that God will take care of the rest. Friends, heaven's expectations are commensurate with the hand we've been dealt. We hope that this plague will end very soon and we'll be able to enjoy the old normal that we all miss so much. On behalf of Rabbanit and myself, Rabbi Rebbetzin Guten Tag, Chazan Avrami and Rachela, the honorary officers, council, and staff, we wish you a safe and healthy Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom to all.